It's 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock. On November 12th, welcome. Work session. But hopefully for this thing, this could soon, so hopefully. I hope you can hear me.
Oh,
No?
she can't hear.
Uh-oh.
It's a little jumbly.
Okay, any better?
That is better, yes.
You gotta remember to eat the mic.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so for the record, we have Jared Garrettson is here. Gibb is here. Lori Nasso is adjusting volume for us. He's here, and myself and Hinalto are all present, so we have a forum, so we'll go ahead and work on our agenda items. First item on the agenda is the 2026 budget. We were hopeful that we would have the information from the county as far as the mill levy and our property tax info. Stacy, I believe you were told last week we were going to mail it.
Yes, we should receive it in the mail any day, but it has not yet come.
So it should be coming in today. We've not received it yet, so that is going to put a little bit of a blunder, I guess, from trying to complete the budget. We don't know what those numbers are at this point. And so when we get that, I know we'll have to schedule. Probably gonna have to schedule a special meeting where we can work on the budget. Or finish up the budget if we don't do it beforehand. Then have a public hearing. And then vote to accept the mill levy, and then we'll vote to accept the 2026 budget and our 2025 amendment. So just looking forward, I know, actually put it on the agenda on Monday night. Think about looking forward. I know originally we talked possibly of doing a meeting on December 4th. I've looked at my calendar and that is not going to work for me. That whole day and then so we might have to look at December 2nd or 3rd, unless we get the information in sooner, and we can set a meeting up before that. We're going to be into Thanksgiving before too long. We won't do it Thursday or Friday of that week for sure. And be on the lookout and for some dates out there if you get back with me on we may talk about it. Maybe Monday we'll have the information for the meeting Monday night and we can set a special meeting. So since it's on the agenda, before I go to that, Hillary, is there anything you would like to add on anything I just said or correct me?
Not a correction, just a clarification. So
Uh-oh.
the
We're
hearing
not
has
here.
been, can you guys hear me?
1 second, Hillary. We lost you.
Oh, how about now?
I'm not sure what changed.
Believe it or not, it has worked very well the last couple of meetings. It was working a minute ago.
Testing?
Yeah.
Oh, is the microphone still working? Okay, good.
When she talks, I don't think it's coming through that speaker.
It's
All
not
right.
coming through anywhere. I'm connected like I should be, though.
Stacy, I'll put on Zoom so to that speaker as well.
Oh, thank you. I forgot to check there. So... Where is that at
We
the
did that this time. So settings, wasn't it?
Can't remember where you found that.
I think it was actually on Zoom.
Oh, was it over there? Oh, you're right. That's not what I meant to do. Microphone.
Is it What is it called?
This is the Onker Power Conference. So the speaker's on it. Should we test?
Try to.
Okay. Yes, 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 yes. Oh.
Hillary, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. We still don't hear her.
I know, right? See that is weird.
Maybe the same as supposed to. Sorry, Hillary, for the difficulty.
No problem.
Understand why that is. Try just speaker sound.
Three different.
Try that one.
This one right here.
No,
No,
that's
this one.
yeah. That one. Sorry, Hillary. Can you talk a little bit?
Sure.
Golly.
You guys have snow?
We got you.
Yeah, it's just a little delayed, I think.
Am I back?
You're back. We're cooking with gas.
All right. So I was saying it's not a correction so much as a clarification. The public hearing on the budget was noticed for the 18th or the 17th, I believe. So even if you don't have the mill levy info, you do need to at least open that public hearing, and you can then continue it to whenever your next special meeting is.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I have that down here, but I don't read my own notes sometimes. But okay, so on the budget itself, there were just a couple of other items before the fund equity that we were talking about. From what I understand with what Stacy said, or Stacy, if you want to try to explain it.
I can just read the email straight from Sarah. I feel like she explains it pretty well. Oh, thank you, Justin. All right. So the fund equity accounts are comprised of the general fund divided into those separate accounts that are designated for the specific things in town. Like the streets and ditches, town hall, parks and rec, etc. While that is all still technically part of the general fund, the money that is designated for each of these areas is monitored separately. So part of the reason for this is because we have the mill levy for town hall and streets and the sales tax revenue for the streets and ditches. So we have to demonstrate that we are moving money to those specific funds.
So the information, part of the information we should get from the county would be our sales tax, 1% estimated. I think we figured out the license revenue rate, property tax income. Get the HUTF income. We're looking at this streets as the example. And from what I could see and looking at the spreadsheet, what Sarah had done before, is we use that fund equity to take money from the fund equity to put into, say, streets budget to cover the expenses, or for ditches, or for town hall, a different category. Hopefully we'll get that information from the county in the next couple of days. There was another thought, I guess, that I had after we worked on the budget last couple of weeks ago. And that was throwing out the idea, we talked about increasing the monthly pay for the mayor and then also for the board of trustees for the annual. And again, I'm gonna ask this question to Hillary just to make sure that it's correct in what I said. So the current sitting board, if we approve the increase the mayor pay or the board of trustees pay, as long as we're sitting on this board consecutively, we would not be eligible for that pay increase.
That's correct. However, if one of you is reelected at a regular election, you could potentially collect the higher rate. It just can't apply during a term.
Okay, so we will have, the entire board will have an election next April. And then if, to say fictitiously, if no one else runs and we don't hold an election because no one else runs and the current board, let's say the current board wants to sit again, would everybody be eligible then or not?
Yes, if the next election is canceled because you don't have more candidates than seats open, then you would all be back in office by acclamation and you would be eligible for the higher pay.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, because I was under the understanding as long as we serve consecutively, we wouldn't be eligible. So we did have a discussion, I think, at the last meeting. I don't know if I have to go back and look at the minutes if we actually defined for sure or voted. I thought we did. We voted for mayor and for board of trustees. Increase.
As I said, I have to have to look at the notes.
What's that? Oh, yeah, Tom made the motion. Yeah. So, okay, so that one's kind of set. The other ones I brought up, though, or thought about afterwards, we did discuss, is any of the commissioners. I think we did talk about the environmental health agent of 65% environmental health. Excuse me. Did we say 65% of the OWTS fee, or did we say a flat $20? I don't think it said 65. Or did we?
Yeah, I'm seeing the flat.
It's a flat, okay. Now that I say it out loud, I believe it was 20, but I'll go back and look at my notes too. But I think I'm certain we did decide on that. We didn't discuss any of the other commissioner positions. And I'd be open to any feedback of any of the other commissioners, and I may throw a wrinkle in it too. So when I look at the different commissioner positions that we have, I'll include the environmental health agent. I think that's a very critical one for us that we relied on it solely to be volunteer in the past. The street commissioner, the ditch commissioners, very important to us. I don't know what everybody else's thoughts on them. Be open to anybody's thoughts.
Well, this is Tom, and this is just information. Having been in close proximity to one of our last environmental health agents. So that person took and passed inspection and installers class.
Right.
Those are kind of expensive. So no reimbursement was ever requested for that because this person wanted to do the job right, but not everybody will be in that position. So that may be something we would want to consider.
I totally agree with you, Tom. I think as we move forward, if we have someone that wants to raise their hand, because there's a lot of, say, clerical, not a lot, but there's clerical work in that job that's really important. But there's also a need for understanding the septic systems for inspections of new systems and repairs. So I'm in agreement with you, Tom, is that if we have someone that raises their hand for that position and they're not NAWT certified, although I did reach out to the state does not require that they be NAWT certified, but they said we strongly recommend them, which I totally agree with, unless it's someone who would have a lot of experience with septic systems to understand what's going on. But I would like to see the town pay for that training if we need to. There's another mic laying there that's ready to go. Oh, it's dead too? Oh. Need batteries.
I did bring batteries. Do we need them? I did. I forgot I brought them till this now, but I do have them in the bottom.
Here's one. Someone's got it.
Here we go.
This is Jared.
You're welcome.
Definitely. They didn't ask for person, which was very generously part of the community. But yeah, I think we've got to step up and yes, yeah, offer compensation, but for sure, any kind of in-service training.
Right, okay.
Just not everybody is able to be that generous.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and if I recall, I had looked at the NAWT course, $395, does that sound right? About 4 of them. Okay. So I guess in talking at that, probably ought to look at environmental health expenses. And if someone finds it on the sheet before, 69.60. We only proposed $150, and that was for basically office supplies. We want to take that up to 550, or do we want to do the 800 for both the installer and inspection?
I don't know the answer to that.
Jesse, we need another set of batteries for Tom's second mic.
So my thoughts are, I would put the lower amount in there. If we need to adjust that, we always can, if we have that opportunity that, you know, if somebody does the NAWT and installer, both classes, we can always revisit that, but it's kind of what I would towards.
Okay, I'm in agreement of doing 550. So 150 for office supplies and 400 for the training. So back to my question of the other commissioners. Do you want to entertain any other payment for any other commissioner positions? Or we want to keep those as volunteers?
I'd like to see something for the streets commissioner, just being point blank about it.
Okay.
It's a lot of work, and our current street commissioner uses his own personal equipment, obviously gets reimbursed for that, but there's not a whole lot of other compensation there for a lot of work that's done. And at some point, we're not going to rely on Jesse. We'll have to have somebody else. And I think being able to have something set aside or have somewhat of a policy already made would be a good idea.
Yeah, we're at some point it might have somebody younger the advantage of having an old guy is, is he has the time to do it and he enjoys that kind of work, but seriously, you know, and he's so happy to do it, and he does it because he loves the town. And it's kind of his forte, but you know, we're gonna have to look at some enticement, I think.
Yep, at some point, so. Might as well do it now.
So, I'm totally agreement. I look at the last summer where we didn't have a street commissioner and we didn't have anybody to step up to take the job. And so our roads got in a little bit of a not great condition, so I think we need to move forward with it. Now, the next question is what do we want to do for compensation?
It's a quandary to me. Oh gosh, this little old town's always been so full of volunteer-hearted people. And we have in the past, we're so thankful, I always say, for all those in the past. But, you know, things come to change and people get older and in all of I'm talking about all of these commissioners, all the volunteers that help the commissioners. It's a tough deal. I don't know. I don't want to be an insult to somebody who might be looking at volunteering. You know, I don't want to lowball it so much that it's an insult. But I don't.
Well, something to consider is not every street commissioner in the future is going to be using their own equipment and physically doing the work. There'll be situations where the street commissioner potentially is just organizing and coordinating maintenance. You know, I see it in the future probably being something where trying to find somebody who can volunteer to do that position and do the work because they have equipment is probably pretty rare versus finding somebody who's willing to coordinate, you know, okay, we're going to have X company come in and grade State Street and River Street and side streets. That's a lot easier to find somebody who's willing to coordinate versus somebody who has the equipment to do. We've just been fortunate to have Jesse for years, but
yeah, and we're talking a lot higher street.
Yeah,
But
so
when
I
it
guess
comes
where
down to that, for sure.
I was going was just at least start somewhere with, I would say just a flat rate, kind of how we do everything
Yeah.
else, just a,
What
Per
kind of
month.
flat rate?
I don't know.
Well, I would say most of the work on streets is done in the summer months. But in the winter months, it's probably more of coordinating with the snow plowing. So I'm not saying that only the work the street commissioner does is only in the summer months, because there is some in the winter months of making sure the snow plowing's done, roads are opened up and so forth. So my first thought was, well, let's say from April till November. Well, if we're gonna do that on a flat fee, and we'll just throw $300 out there, I don't more or less, but we're already going 8-9 months there. So we just make it an annual or a monthly for the entire year.
Yeah, I was thinking just monthly entire year makes that a little easier instead of going, oh, well, it's April, now it's 300, but now it's January, so it's 200. Yeah, I don't want to get into that. Trying to think about in the future, not our immediate situation of like, if somebody's going to be the street commissioner and their job is to coordinate people, it's not necessarily doing the physical work, but coordinating contractors. You know, and there might be years where we have big snow years, and that's a lot more coordination than we realize. So that's.
Didn't hear anybody else throw a number out there.
I was gonna say, what if we just did $250 a month flat? it becomes 3,000 for the year. It's not an insignificant sum of money, and hopefully at some point that's somewhat of compensation for, you know, when Jesse passes the torch over the next person, would maybe think that's at least somewhat of a compensation or enticement to manage streets.
I would like for you to look at the hours I put in on maintenance, and that's sure not all of them, with my
Mm-hmm.
requests.
Yep, I have that info. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not trying to shortchange your amount of work, just trying to figure out some number to start with.
So can you keep an hourly rate in the laws and go that way?
The thing with going with an hourly rate is we don't know how to budget it. Because we don't know for sure how many hours it's gonna be every month or annual. That's,
Well, and say I volunteer for street commissioner. Well, I don't have we have a tractor, but I'm not gonna be the one physically doing the work or somebody. So they're not gonna necessarily get paid an hour. And that's what I'm saying, like trying to separate the fact that you do the work and you put in your time versus in the future, it's just a person that's potentially just coordinating everything. I think that's a higher likelihood of finding somebody versus finding somebody who has the equipment to do it dirt cheap like our current one.
It's interesting, and it does take a lot more than the person would think, even in a managerial position, which, you know, Jesse's scouting around looking, and he's a volunteer, and he's so happy to do that. But when you're talking about hopefully enticing someone who might be younger and maybe they're still even doing things.
so I do think there needs to be differentiation between the street commissioner as far as coordinating stuff, and the street commissioner that, I mean, obviously, right now, Jesse's using his own tractor. And he keeps the man, he keeps track of the man, but we don't pay for the man.
No.
And
He only kept track on request.
So-
Yes, but he keeps track of the man hours just because he was requested to, I think by one of the former mayors. And so he doesn't do it to brag or to say this, that, or the other, but that does give us a little idea.
I think it gives an idea, but that's where I'm going with it, is as we move forward, if we have a set per month for the street commissioner for coordinating, if the street commissioner is using their own tractor, billing the town for the tractor, you can't go rent a tractor without an operator.
Yeah,
So it needs to be an operator and a tractor rental. Right? Because I think where we've got to move as we go forward, like we've all discussed, we know Jesse won't be doing it forever. So as we go forward and we get someone that's just going to coordinate, we need to have a set per month for the coordinating part of it. And then if they have their own tractor, then they would have billable hours for running the
Sure.
tractor.
Yeah, which would fall under our maintenance expense at that point.
yes, and for sure, you know, still, as has historically happened, trying to keep the budget low, because if you hire people from out of town, which you have to do occasionally, or trying to just make it the most cost effective you can for the town. And with our increased sales tax, we have a little more money, and streets is one of our most important budgets. And you would hope to find the right kind of person that wants to do it, and maybe if it wasn't totally volunteer, we could find that person.
I look over the past year, the struggle we've had in trying to get volunteer commissioners to raise their hand.
Yeah.
Because I see part of what's going on. People see the town is doing better with tax rate. And unfortunately, today's culture is, well, why do I want to volunteer? So I think we're to that point. We have to make some steps in this. So I concur with Corey even on the $250 per month. And we start there and move forward from that.
I'd like to throw you back to 300, that's $10 a bill.
I'm okay with either. I was just trying, you kind of
Come up
mentioned,
with a number.
yeah, just, okay, 3,600 a year. 300, I mean, I'm fine with it, just see where we're at. And and to more on your point there is eventually the commissioners, everything, I know we hear it all the time. It's gotta be younger people, and it's ultimately gonna have to be. Just can speak from my personal experiences. In the summer, I have a million things going on. And so it's really hard to go, yeah, let me go spend another, 10, 15 hours a week unpaid to do stuff when I'm barely keeping the circus operating in our business. But when you go, well, I got paid $300, or you go, well, it's $3,600 a year. It's not an insignificant amount of money. It does help kind of sweeten the pot a little bit and go, well, yeah, I had to go put 15 hours in this week, but at least I got compensated for it. It wasn't taking time away from my family in the evening or potentially time away from running a business to do, for nothing. So,
I agree with that, Corey, so.
I mean, I'm just
maybe we
saying,
say
my personal,
They say for him, that's not much.
I'm fine with it.
We can call that good and then to adjust this. Okay.
So is everyone okay with 300 a month?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. And that's the other thing is, I don't want to be irresponsible with tax money, but have such an increase in sales tax we've seen in the last 10 years, like, hey, let's start using that for beneficial things. Let's not just, yes, we need to be responsible and save money, but like, we can't just sit on it every year and not do anything. And let's address some of the known issues, which is getting people to volunteer or be commissioners. Our sales taxes more than double from 2014 or something like that. Just about.
Can't remember the number.
Yeah. No, my point being is like, let's start using some of that instead of just sitting on it and see where it gets us there in some ways.
Okay, so I'm gonna plug it in at, 3,600 for the year. Is that math right?
Yep.
I don't trust myself anymore. So I'm gonna put it under other expenses. That's the cap helps. We need to do differently. And then how about any of the other commissioner positions at this point? Do we want to keep those as volunteer? Also on the list, I guess the zoning board too. Well, the zoning board was, I think, greatly reduced the amount of workload here of recent. Very few variances coming in. So, just throw my thoughts out there for the zoning board. I know when we were working on the zoning code, it seemed like we were having meetings at least once a month, every month. But now that that's behind, it's primarily variances that the zoning board has to deal with. So maybe it ought to be, if we do pay in the zoning board, maybe it ought to be on a pay for each of the normal zoning board meetings that are in, that are attended, rather than just a flat fee every month. But the zoning board is also responsible for any building permits for checking setbacks. Not that that takes an enormous amount of time. But is it an additional item they may have to do? Or do we leave the zoning board as long with the other commissioner positions as volunteer at this point?
What that is. But that's great to stay home and to get your research done before the meeting and be prepared for it.
So something along the line of $50 per meeting. $100 per meeting, $50 per meeting?
I was kind of thinking 50, just a starting place.
That's no problem.
I'll show my ignorance here. What's our board makeup? Is it 4 plus a chairman?
Yeah, four plus chairman
It's 250 a meeting.
meeting, and even if you do one meeting a month,
It's 3,000 a year.
3,000. Under the zoning expenses, then we did that. So what are your thoughts at the other end of the table?
What was that?
What are your thoughts, Tom?
Ed, as near as I can tell, I really don't have an opinion on this.
Okay.
Times are changing and, what all those changes entail, I'm at a loss to know. I think Corey is correct. Yeah. We need more than just volunteer. We need some sort of financial compensation, just in principle. What that is, we just voted for this board to go from 25 to what? 50 a month? 50. Yeah. So zoning would seem to me to be kind of in the same category as this one.
Jerry, you okay with that?
Yes.
So, what we say, 3,000, the
Yeah.
budget would be for 3,000? Okay, any of the other commissioner positions that I think at this point we ought to move active on, or keep those at volunteer for the next year and then revisit again maybe next year?
This is Tom, and I think that's a plan.
I'm gonna throw a bit of a wrinkle in it now. And Hillary, I haven't sent this to you yet because I just got it this afternoon. But CIRSA, I guess, sent a request to Stacy today or yesterday that they would like, or it said that we needed to do another resolution that provides certain elected and or appointed officials of the town of Pitkin deemed not to be employees within the meaning of the workers' compensation laws. And in the past, we've listed all the commissioner positions, the zoning board of adjustments, environmental health agent, and said that they would not be employees of the town because they receive no compensation. I don't know how what we just discussed impacts what I just got this afternoon with this resolution. So, and I know Hillary's totally blindsided by it. I don't know if you even comment on it without seeing the resolution. It's
I
been
would
done.
like to see the resolution, but I would say there's a difference between being an employee and being compensated for time, and duties. So I don't know that paying these positions makes them employees, is what I would say, but I would like to look at it more closely.
My intent was to send it to you early tomorrow morning.
Sounds good.
Because I think we'll have to have it on the agenda on Monday if CIRSA needs it. So I'm just scrolling through the rest of the budget. I don't see anything else that we highlighted that we had questions on other than the equity fund piece and needing the mill levy information. So
Did we ever get an answer on like, 5260.4 town hall capital improvement, why it was a negative $2,700? Right there.
Oh, that,
We get any clarification on that?
We did not get clarification on that. That is gonna require more digging on my part, which I have not done yet, but intend to do toot sweep.
cause I know, well, that was at the last meeting or work session that was brought up, I think. Ramon had said that was the amount from Sarah Bergstrom on the engineering for the OWTS. But I'm not sure why it's showing up as a negative.
Yeah,
So yeah, if we get some clarification on that, Stacy.
And there's also one under Parks and Rec, you just passed it. It's a negative under expenses as well. Yeah, 1175. Same idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea. Let me, Stacy, we can check on that.
yeah, those are on my list, right at the top. Those were all the negatives, just those two.
So I think once we get all the equity fund stuff filled in, I think we'll probably be okay.
That will be good. Any further discussion? The 2026 budget? All right. And let's move to the zoning code update. Let's see. I have up on the screen. They emailed out to all of you too. Zoning code update. These were the zoning code updates. There's two parts to this. These are the zoning code updates that were recommended by the zoning board that they voted on and then passed on to us. And then we also have Hillary's notes on the side as well of items that she had recommended that we need to address as well. So I think probably, she'd tell me differently, the easiest way to do this is start at the top. And if there's anything that's struck out or changed.
At the very beginning, we need to put a space between Pitkin and zoning. It's just a clerical thing, but
Yeah.
Actually. I don't know if it'll let you edit it or not there. It opened in a format that I was able to edit. I'm not sure what the difference was. Yeah.
Oh, so I think if you go to the top right and click on the reviewing, change that to editing there.
And this will need to be adopted by ordinance, so I can certainly work on formatting. The,
Okay.
it looks like it was probably converted from a PDF, so there's some formatting things throughout that are a little wonky. We could drive ourselves crazy tonight trying to fix them.
No, that's fine. I noticed it right out of the gate here.
Yeah, no. In the version I have my I have all characters showing and there is a space there. It's just for whatever reason it's
Okay.
who knows.
And you said yours, you can edit too?
Yeah. I don't know what's different. I just downloaded it from the email you sent out and it's editable.
Let me just try to send it or open it from the email. Gee. What the difference is. Slant.
Yep.
It's under there. Did you click enable that? There we go.
It is there, yeah, it opened up. Differently.
Oh,
We're done, okay, all right, done with that now. Okay, and then, of course, everybody thinks saw
yep.
Hillary's comment, we've got to adopt that by ordinance. Take off her recommendation, we'll adopt a number of these ordinances at the same time. The codes, I mean, by ordinance. So the whole table of contents will be adjusted after we're done with it. Of course, if it changes 125. Anything on, I'm just gonna go through pages, and you tell me if there's anything that you saw that we want to address or need to address. I think the only thing on page 4 was just the 2025 and when it's adopted. The title. The fence definition changed slightly.
Section 6. There's some stuff that looks like it was removed, sorry. And I may have already got ahead of you, sorry, Ed.
I don't know where you went.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was scrolling, I got ahead of you,
Okay,
sorry.
all right. So anybody have issues with the fence definition? Okay with that? I think that was the only change on page 5. Page 6. I see no changes on page 6. Other than the OWTS marker. I believe that definition was added. It's not in the original.
But can I make an explanatory comment? So that's showing in strike through there, that's just my suggestion to remove the notation.
Right.
Um,
And that-
similar to the fence definition, it's not changed, it's just, apparently the deletion that's shown was approved in 2023. But I'm just actually showing it deleted.
And I believe, the zoning board started on the updating OWTS back in 2023. So that's when the definition was added for OWTS marker at that point. Then on page 7, I think that was where Corey was. On the zoning district, so we had originally residential district. And then a business district, which we've always had in the zoning code. And then the addition is C, the planned development. Which is, I think we referred to as a planned unit development.
Yep.
I believe that section was actually added, either by Hillary or her team for the plan.
That's correct. So that was in response to a request
Correct.
to potentially have this as an option within the zoning code. So just because it's available doesn't mean you have anything zoned PD, but it could be done in the future.
Any,
I'm fine with it, up to that one, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, well, I have some questions on what constitutes a planned development. Imagining concepts in urban design. That follow these positive things that it might do. And it includes mixed uses. Enhanced ecosystem services. I don't know what that's. Substantial additional benefits that the town would not otherwise be required by this code. So I'm not clear what this means.
So PD as a concept, and you'll hear it called PD, PUD. It's the idea that you're taking a large-ish piece of property and developing it in town in a way that wouldn't work according to the existing zone districts. So it wouldn't fit in residential, it wouldn't fit in commercial or business because it has elements of both, potentially. It's meant to be a zoning district unto itself. So if a property owner had a proposal for some way to use property in town that didn't fit within residential or business, and the town determined that that was a benefit to the town and it was something that the town wanted to allow, then PD zoning would be imposed on that property. And that PD zoning includes the property's entire development potential. It's essentially zoning the PD with zoning requirements that only apply to the PD. It allows it to be a unique, kind of self-contained portion of the town.
Okay, well, so I understand what a PUD or a planned urban development is, and that's a comprehensive plan, and a comprehensive is plan is a keyword of a specific area, and so what happens is either lots and streets or are platted, or in the case like we're familiar with, kind of looking at here in Pitkin, are replatted in such a fashion and such an organization that all the pieces are planned and fit together so that you create lots with access that are of a size that meets all of the requirements for residential development.
Not necessarily.
Do
They
these
could have
lots-
their own, I'm sorry to interrupt. It could have its own criteria for what a lot size is.
Okay, I didn't.
It could have its own criterion for what a lot size might be.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can make it as big or as compact, but it would still need to, there are minimum requirements for what it takes to do something. And those requirements in Pitkin and in the county are setback requirements for wells and septics, not just on your property, but as a cohesive package. You would also want it designed so you did not impinge on the rights or the developable status of any neighboring properties. So it's a whole big puzzle that has to be worked out simultaneously at the same time so that all the future property owners are happy on down the road, and you don't run into problems with getting crossed up with your neighbors because this is too close or that's too close. Development is tricky. And while this reads, what I read here doesn't tell me, as a guy who has a little experience with what it takes to do construction on lots, doesn't tell me exactly what this is. It seems like an open-ended sort of nebulous cloud that could get scattered and torn apart, whereas it needs to be pulled together cohesively, and this thing doesn't work. So that's just how I see it. It's nice ideas.
I'm just gonna interject. I think it gives the town the flexibility, and let's just address the elephant in the room, like in Jake's property. It addresses because they determined that it's probably the best course of action, but the town doesn't actually have one. We're not necessarily saying we have to lay out every single criteria right here in this definition. But it gives us the ability to have a plan development, if which such case that Jake comes back to us, we're able to go, okay, well, these are the criteria we agree upon. And that addresses your setbacks and all that, but we're not gonna spell every detail out here. I think this gives the town the ability to have.
Well, I understand that, but words in the zoning code are important. And words like mixed uses, define that. I mean, we have a residential, and then we have commercial, which is also for a mix of low impact residential and commercial uses. That's mixed use. Is that what this third thing is as well?
So I would suggest you also read that in connection with the subdivision requirement. So a PD will also be a subdivision. So the subdivision requirements which are added, those do provide a little bit more of it. It includes some parameters, some more certainty, but a PD is meant to be flexible. That's you're kind of touching on what is both its benefit and potentially its detriment, is that you don't know what a PD is going to be until you have a PD proposal brought to you by a developer, at which point then the town reviews it and determines whether it works for the town.
Okay, this is truly flexible, I will say that. It's not near as definitive as probably one of the least definitive things in this zoning code.
Well, but right in this section, as far as zoning districts, under residential or business district, we don't specify out there that you have to have a lot size of 9,000 square feet or greater. But it is in the zoning code in another section that does spell out that the building requirements in the town of Pitkin are 9,000 square feet.
Or more, yes, and as we move down the road, we're discovering that 9,000 feet
Maybe time.
might not be enough, and if your neighbors or your neighborhood has not been laid out correctly, then you wind up with lots that are horrifically expensive to develop or are not even developing. So that's the reason that this is worrisome to me. I don't have any stake in this, in anything that I'm planning in the future, but I do have concerns for the town, and I see this as a bit too nebulous and open-ended, so that's all I'll say about that.
So I understand what Hillary's saying too with the plan development. The plan development is, it's pretty open-ended. But when a developer brings a plan to the board, that's when the board's got to decide or say, okay, these are the parameters we want to see the lots. We want to see the placing of the well, placing of the septic systems and the leach fields. That becomes part of that plan development at that point. It's not necessarily spelled out in the zoning code. But I think under the concept of a plan development, it is open. And each one could look a little different as we go forward too, if there's more than one ever proposed intent.
And Hillary, can you reiterate what you said with regarding the plan development and subdivision?
Yeah, so a plan development would necessarily include subdividing property, I believe. So the new section added to the zoning code, it's section 26, I believe.
Yep.
Those criteria would also apply. And that provides some sort of the basic basic parameters about, you know, there shall be adequate public improvements. There shall be adequate vehicular and pedestrian access. There shall be dedicated rights of way. So it just provides a baseline, I guess I would say, of what you're going to have to get out of a PUD. But I would also say these are by design drafted to be very bare bones. I mean, your whole zoning code is very bare bones. So if you're looking for more specificity as to PD zoning, I mean, the sky's the limit. I could provide you 6 or 8 examples of more complex PD zonings, but it would be kind of out of character for the rest of the zoning code and out of character for the town, really. So
I'm fine with it. I think the intentionally, I don't want to say vague, but the intentional open-endedness of the plan development is so that there can be flexibility. It doesn't mean that it just gets run wild. The town still reviews and approves or disapproves these developments. My point being is I'm fine with the definition as is.
Okay, my last comment is that I have sat across several groups, both on zoning and the town board. As things turn over, concepts and ideas change. And I'm telling you, words are important. I'm afraid of some of these words. I'll just.
Jared, you have,
Well, I'm just thinking that I thought what Hillary was explaining kind of reinforced what we heard from Pete Olson. He seemed to have, he helped us out with this, and he seemed to have a lot of experience with that's a lot of what his job was or his whole career. So I kind of understood why this needed to be so loose in this section for flexibility. But being open-ended, that I don't know what the future point run with that too. Or what needs might be there in the future. Maybe it just allows for more needs to be fulfilled for the town.
I'm in favor of leaving it the way it's worded. The only hesitation I have in any of the plan development is the 2 words of mixed uses. When we specify up above residential and business district, low impact residential and commercial uses, I wouldn't want it to be misconstrued in plan development that you could have business or residential in that plan development. But as a plan development, if they come to maybe a point we may be presented with, it might be commercial or residential, you know? It's
I'd
not,
say that's an important piece of a lot of PDs. If you think of like live work units or commercial on the ground floor and residential above. So mixed use is an important concept. It doesn't mean you'll always get it, but it's important to allow.
I'm in favor of leaving what it.
Could I ask Hillary a question?
Sure.
With the county, on the county assessor side, when it says mixed use for a property, is that different total concept than what we're talking about if we leave mixed use in this?
Maybe, I'm not sure what mixed use means in the assessment world. But zoning mixed use is a term of art, and it means what we're talking about here, where we're mixing residential and commercial. Not sure how the assessor uses it.
Thank you.
Are we in agreement with leaving it the way it is? Guess it's a little bit open-ended. But it allows on each plan development that comes forward for the board to decide that particular one, which way to do.
Now, tell me, what does this enhanced ecosystem services, what does that mean?
That means that it would provide some sort of environmental benefit. If you don't like the words, we can take them out.
I'm just uninformed, and when I read that, I wondered.
Yeah,
But maybe it means that 7 acres south of town or downstream that didn't get passed in 1979. I don't know.
I've already said, I'm fine with it as is. If we proceed at this pace, we're not gonna get anything done by it.
I'll go with it.
Okay, I'm gonna say, let's move forward with it at this point. Think anything changed in the zoning map? Applicability. Changes in that.
Hillary, I assume under the very first line, it says except as provided in this section or by a variance granted. By removing that doesn't create any issue with the town issuing variances. I always assume that had to be in there to clarify that buildings or structures could be potentially erected, moved, or structurally altered with a variance, but we don't have to necessarily have that verbiage in here right at this point.
that's correct. And I'm checking now, but the variance process is set out separately, so it's in there. This section just isn't specifically referring to it, which is fine. It's read as a whole.
So I'm trying not to scroll through it because I've got it on the screen. But the A and B that was struck out, Hillary, I'm presuming those are elsewhere in the zoning code. Like the 9,000 square feet and no agriculture activities within the town of Pitkin.
I believe if they show in green, well, let me check. Yeah, so the lot minimum is in section 12, residential district, 9,000 square feet, business district, 9,000 square feet. And agriculture is prohibited because only uses that are allowed are allowed. So by not allowing it anywhere, it's prohibited.
Are we okay with section 6?
Yeah, I mean, that was my question earlier when I got a little bit ahead of us, but that was my question, why they were marked out, but if it's. I understand, and I'm fine with that.
Tom, you okay?
Yeah, I'm supposing that agriculture and horticulture. One's plants and one's livestock. Is that correct? So, yeah. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, it defines agriculture, raising or keeping horses, cattle, pigs, sheep, goats, on blah, 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 or other livestock. It doesn't mention anything about horticulture.
Okay, section 7. Little verbiage at the top that's changed. Any use that's not listed is prohibited, so. It tells us what is permitted under residential business. If it's not listed there, then it's not permitted. Or just prohibited. Okay, you okay with 7?
Yeah, yes and no.
Okay,
I guess the only thing where it states any use that is not listed is prohibited. And that's basically relying on the town board and the zoning code or zoning board to come up with every possibility that could possibly ever happen in town. Say in a business district, and you never know what somebody, and it's pretty encompassing, but yeah, is it one of those things the town is willing to revisit this if somebody comes to it and says, hey, I have an idea for X business, but it's said it's not specifically listed here, so I can't have that. And we have to revisit it at that time. I think I see it being applicable in residential, but I have some qualms with it applying to the business district, because like I said, that's requiring us to be all encompassing and basically saying outside of the listed 14 items here, we're allowed no other type of business here. And I don't have any ideas. I'm just.
Well, this is Tom. We keep seeing an increase in tourism across the board. And we don't have we have retail stores and shops. We don't have any rental facilities in any category. Whether it's, cross-country skiing and what, razor rentals.
And I would think maybe that falls under retail stores. But like I said, it doesn't specifically. Well, maybe you could potentially argue that falls under retail stores or shops, number 11. But
okay, if
that's
under retail, then that's fine.
that's what I was saying. I mean, just trying to think what's new to town. Like, it doesn't specifically say you can have an art gallery in a business district.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
So I'm just saying. I mean, that's new to now. It's not specifically. It's not specifically allowed here. You could maybe make the argument that it's a retail store.
It is a retail store.
so I'll throw another one out there. It's Tom. So, people coming in, tourists. What about RVs?
On Main Street.
We have, in commercial business district today, we have some RV parks.
It's a good point. So that's where the only thing I have heartburn about on that any use that's not listed as prohibited is that basically forces the town to have to revisit any potential business idea that is not explicitly stated.
I'd be happy enough to take that sentence out. Just because it will, in some case, might tie your hands pretty tight.
But like I said, I don't necessarily have a problem with using that kind of verbiage in residential. Maybe, and like I said, it's the only part I had heartburn about. Maybe Hillary can explain a little bit, but obviously, I think that's a little more applicable to residential to say, look, it's for low density housing. And somebody doesn't come in and go, well, it doesn't explicitly state I can't build a 10-story apartment complex in residential. Although, so I'm not necessarily against the verbiage, I just have some concerns about using that as it applies to a business district.
Yeah, I think the idea is that it's enumerating what's allowed instead of trying to enumerate what's not allowed. So this is a pretty common phrase in zoning codes because it preserves the jurisdiction's ability to say what is allowed without having to, like I just said, like without having to anticipate all the things that you don't want to have. So there are, I would say, in more robust zoning codes, provisions about the planning director being able to make a finding of equivalent use. So if it's not an enumerated use, but the planning director issues a decision that says this proposed use is equivalent in impacts to this enumerated use, then therefore it is also an allowed use. But that's not in here because this is a pretty streamlined zoning code. So yeah, I mean, it's your call. The flip side is if we take that out, then you probably do have to list a bunch of prohibited uses. So things that you don't want in your business district, which are maybe harder to know.
So can we write it in a way, Hillary, where it's like it is, but we do allow either the zoning board or the board of trustees can allow other types of uses?
You could put in a mechanism to have a finding of substantially similar use or something like that, so that the list of business district uses is more illustrative than definitive. The risk there is that you'll have potentially a decision that the zoning board and the board of trustees has to make about a specific piece of property, which could be uncomfortable and is not necessarily the best way. So the idea with zoning is that it's legislative, it's broadly applicable, it's prospective, so people coming in know what they can and can't do. If you retain too much discretion to make those kinds of findings on a case-by-case basis, it starts impacting individual property rights. It becomes being a question of, well, now you're depriving me of this use of my property, and it gets into the kind of quasi-judicial realm of property rights. So we could look at language that provides for some discretion. I'd say the exercise of that discretion is a little bit iffy at times. It can be kind of a risky situation, but we can give it a go. We could add a 15 to business district that says, you know, similar uses with no more detrimental impacts to traffic, parking, neighbors. You know, we could try to make a catch-all that allows some flexibility, but also kind of toes the line between maintaining what is a reasonable limitation.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see the town be able to have some sort of discretion. I mean, at the moment, I don't see anybody probably bringing anything to the board beyond what's already here, potentially an RV park of some sort, because it's not explicitly stated. But I see what you're saying, is there are definitely types of businesses that the town would not want here. And trying to enumerate those that are not allowed is probably pretty difficult.
So I'm thinking we need to add a 15 for, we've allowed RV parks for the last 3 or 4 years anyway. They weren't in the old zoning code. I'm wondering if we shouldn't add RV parks, but then add a 16 with the verbiage that Hillary cited. It'll give us some leeway in the future if we need to open it up, we don't know what's gonna come in. I'd like to see the zoning board and the board of trustees have a little bit of leeway with some of it.
I think I'm okay with that. I think it's reasonable.
Years ago. We'll talk to you.
15 for what, just?
RV.
Oh, RV, okay. I missed the RV.
Yeah, there is one ready to go if that land ever sells, but. I said if she ever would sell. And. That was the intention at that time.
I'm fine with it either way. Either add a 15 and say RV parks and 16 with some discretion. But I understand what Taylor's saying. It kind of does open to be pretty subjective, but
Well, this is Tom, and I have heard both directions, but I've also been hearing both directions. Many people are not happy with the RV concept. What's that?
It just seems like it's awful hard to hit everything that you prohibit. It's like it's hard to hit everything you permit. I guess that's why we have, is that why, can you do a variance if there's something that came up?
Can't typically do a use variance. You can do variances as to like numeric provisions, but not typically use.
Uh-huh.
I guess I'm fine with just putting RV parks in there and I guess to some extent it was like I was saying if it becomes an issue, then said person can potentially petition the zoning board of the town saying, hey, I have this idea. I don't think it's detrimental to town and petition the town to amend the zoning code for that. But I think RV parks is obviously somewhat of a I don't want to say elephant in the room, but there's RVs in town. And this would be a business district use.
So how did that, not to belabor this, but that property in town kind of across from the post office that was never got finished, just sits there, and it's set up for 4 RV sites or something. I don't know if there's documentation on how that came about, or maybe because it's been there a long time, maybe nothing was required at that time, just came through. I don't know if there would be OWTS records at that time, but anyway, somehow that got started, it just didn't get finished. And if I remember right, the intention, the fear is we don't want this town turning into a bunch of RV parks and parking spaces. Anyway, those were the comments in the past.
Well, I'm for adding 15 for RV parks, if we don't want to do the 16. But to give the board of trustees and the zoning board some leeway. then it would be upon the zoning board and then the board of trustees to amend the zone. If someone should come to us and say, well, we'd like to open up X, Y, Z, whatever it is, and it's not on the list, then we'd have to.
It's also possible that could fit in as a PD if there's a combination of things that weren't anticipated. It's potentially a planned development.
So planned development can be a very small property in town. It doesn't have to be a whole big subdivision.
There's not a limitation as to size, but it is generally larger. Your definition doesn't have any minimum size.
Hillary, could multiple dwelling units, could that cover RVs or not?
Well, that gets to my next comment, which was we should define what an RV park is. So that would be a new definition. Typically, typically dwellings are meant for residential habitation, which an RV may be used for that, but they also may be used for short-term lodging. So we need to know which type of use is happening in these RV parks that you want to allow, so that we have a definition that suits the use.
Well, this is not multiple dwelling, units, any dwelling. Dwelling units require a septic system. I think it's in this stuff. So I don't know how you would. Classify an RV. Two or three
Well, it has
RVs.
its own, if it's self-contained, and you don't allow dumping, then that would seem to not be a dwelling unit.
So can I make a suggestion? If I understand this still has to go to a public hearing, correct?
That is correct.
So can we add RV parks and add a definition? Can we have a public hearing and see how the town at large feels about that? And then we can move on.
I think that's the way we should go with it. So Hillary, are you? I don't know where to keep track of this at, as far as any updates we're making on them.
Yeah, I've been keeping track, so I
You-
have.
And,
Mhm.
okay,
Yep.
okay, we're gonna go to section 8 for conditional uses then. And just to make some clarification and verbiage, I believe. Temporary construction facilities and heavy equipment. Any thoughts, questions there?
Nope.
Section 9, temporary uses. Strike out some changes there. And just clarification on section 9. Okay there.
Yeah, I think it looks fine.
10, there's no changes. 11, non-permitted uses. Struck the specific ordinance. The current camping ordinances. Space requirements in section 12, no different. Other than, I believe, the fence setback. Just struck the building. All fences require a fence permit, not a building. Section 13, no changes. 14 was no changes. 15.
I'll be the first to say that 15 was the one I had the most questions about, and why there's such a drastic change.
Can I preface it with a quick explanation?
Mhm.
That between when the existing language was adopted and now, there were a couple significant US Supreme Court cases about sign code limitations and what you can and cannot do. And the existing ordinance falls squarely on the side of what you can no longer do. So the problem is that they were content-based restrictions. And instead of regulating content, you have to now regulate size and materials. So that's what we have done.
I'm okay with taking out most of that.
So I guess Hillary, in that clarifies that a whole lot. I assume there was probably some pretty significant reason. I'll just, I mean, out of the gate, when we state, prohibited signs, the following types of signs are prohibited banners. Well, we at the Silver Plume Grill, our sign is a banner. And so when I read this, I mean, you can make the argument that it's pre-existing, yada yada, but from what I understand, that would mean, okay, we have to make the sign out of something else other than a vinyl banner.
True, and that's not, I mean, this is as drafted now. You don't have to adopt it this way. But this is the type of content neutral prohibitions that the town can enact. So if you don't want to prohibit banners, a lot of places do, because they get tattered and start to look bad over time. But yeah, I'm not presuming to tell you what you want to prohibit, but this is a list of things you can prohibit.
So just, I guess, to add to that. Under that section 3 of prohibited signs. So, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud for the town of Pitkin. I mean, I don't know the banners are a big issue, even the pennants.
Yeah, pennant streamers,
Pennant streamers.
balloons, flags.
Now searchlights, strobe lights and beacons. Okay, those can be an issue, particularly on Main Street or well, even in residential too. I don't know about inflatable signs and costume characters. That's my thoughts on 3 anyway. We definitely prohibit searchlights, strobe lights, beacons. I can go either way on inflatable signs and costume characters.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I guess my question, Hillary, is that maybe I don't want to speak for everybody. Is that I don't know if I'm reading this correctly or not, but what prohibits say our business, the Silver Plume store, going and putting a sign in every property we own, whether it's residential or business.
What prohibits
I guess
that?
because the fear is you don't want the town to be basically just covered in billboards.
Yeah, well, they require permits, so signs require permits. So that's sort of your first safety against excessive signs is that you'd have to have a permit. And then even if you have a permit, you can't get one of the prohibited signs.
And I guess would that be considered an off? What it defines an off premises sign? Is that more of a off the premises, or is that it prohibits it from being on town property?
It's not the latter, so the town can always prohibit unauthorized signs in its own right of way. It's a sign about something that's not on the premises, so it's not an identification of something that's on the property. It's something off the property. So it'd be you putting a sign on your business property that says something about something that doesn't appear there.
Would it also, I'm gonna use Corey as an example since he brought it up.
Yeah,
Would it be? So the off premises sign, would that be also, say the Silver Plume takes a sign and they put it down on someone else's property in residential?
Yeah,
Is
but
that
that wouldn't be allowed
safe?
anyway. I mean, the residential property owner wouldn't have to allow that anyway, but yeah, same idea.
But what if they did? In Pitkin,
That would be, yeah, that would be an off-premises sign that would not be permitted.
I guess I gotta find my. Yeah, I guess I was just trying to understand some of the verbiage and the reasoning behind it. Like I said, I'm not necessarily opposed to banners, pennants, streamers, balloons, flags, all that. I think the thing is to prevent, distractions. You don't want somebody. My personal feeling, I don't want somebody to have a sign that is strobing when you drive by. I mean, you see them in big cities, and it's distracting, and I think it takes away from the character of the town to allow stuff like that. But at the same time, and I think it is allowed based on the verbiage, you don't necessarily want to have somebody that can't have a lit sign, at night. So, but I think that's allowed based on the verbiage here.
It would be, yeah. Just not flashing, moving, or intermittently lit.
Sure, we don't want searchlights, strobe lights. I understand that. Beacons. Some of this stuff.
So if I were to take the banners, pennants, streamers, balloons, and flags and strike through that, is everybody okay with that?
I'll say it again,
Yeah, I
please.
think so.
Banners, I've highlighted up there, banners, pennants, streamers, balloons, and flags.
Is that, so, yeah, your question there, my question for your question, is that on site or is that off site? Is that on the business property or is that somewhere else?
It's on,
Two different.
because there's a separate prohibition for off premises. So this is what a business person could put on their own property.
And I guess my other question, this was the example I was thinking of. So, like our store, we have our Silver Plume General Store sign, but then we also had a small banner made that said, cold beer sold here because it's the first year. Under this code, would something like that, A, I assume since it's a banner, it'd be allowed, but B, is that something that would require a sign permit? Given that it's not exactly a permanent sign. you know,
Yeah.
I'm playing devil's advocate because I can think of examples in our own business.
Mhm.
And I'm not necessarily saying, oh, I'm trying to make sure mine's okay. I'm just.
No, and that's why,
Specific.
so often, banners and temporary signs are not, a permit is not required for those. Because as you say, they're temporary and they're not, but that's how they tend to proliferate and become unregulated. So, that's a decision for you guys to make. As this is written now, that banner would require a sign permit. But if we're striking the prohibition against banners, it could be allowed. You just have to get a sign permit for it.
Sorry, my laptop died. Is there, there's a section about temporary signs, isn't there?
There is. We're just not there yet.
Yeah, I know, I just,
But yes, there's. Can you see?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. So temporary signs are not, you don't need to get a permit for those. So you'd have a maximum of 15 square feet per sign.
yeah, and ours was like a 2x3. And like I said, I'm not necessarily asking specifically for me. It's just a good example to
Mhm.
ask some questions around.
Yep.
You know, and so, you know, I don't want to see any of the businesses in town say, hey, we're advertising for an event or something. Oh God, I got to go get a sign permit to put this banner up for the next 15 days or next month. You know, somebody wants to advertise in June for a 4th of July event they're holding. I don't necessarily, and this is just my
No, you're
opinion,
right.
I don't get a sign permit just
You
to
wouldn't.
advertise. So
You
I'm
wouldn't.
saying,
I misspoke because I didn't scroll down far enough to see the temporary sign. So no, you're right. There is this allowance for that kind of thing.
okay, sorry, I didn't mean to jump too far ahead. I just,
That's okay.
well, on like height maximum of 4 feet above ground level. Well, we personally had our temporary sign about 6 foot up. So yeah, that's true. So I think some of that can potentially be addressed. I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to think of examples in town that how it affects current situations and, you know, any similar situations in the future. Yeah, which I mean, so under, you know, under an event, you wouldn't have to have a permit. So I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm gonna scroll back up. I was just,
Okay, so, well, before I scroll off temporary sign, everybody okay with that section?
Oh, are we talking about the number of signs or not yet?
Let's finish temporary signs. I want to go back up to here.
Okay,
yeah,
Prohibited signs. Just trying to finish on something.
yeah,
So, well, let's just go back to prohibited
that's
signs.
fine.
Are we okay if we strike banners, pennant streams, balloons, flags like I have? Leave the rest of it? Anything else that you don't like or think needs to be added?
This is Tom with the question on flags. I don't mind. I think you could strike banners. That would probably be legit. Pennants are similar, but banners are typically more good, you know, better. But what kind of flags are we talking about? I don't see anything but, you know, Colorado flags and this flag. And maybe a Trump flag, I don't know. Broncos, yeah, I forgot about that. So my question is, are flags important? And what kind of flags are we talking?
So if it's struck, and it's not included, then American flags, Colorado flags, whatever flags
All food.
would be permitted.
I was just a question. I don't.
Yeah. That's the way I see
Yeah, I see it
it.
that
If we
way.
strike,
To play devil's advocate, I also see that if you strike it, does that mean you also have to get a sign permit for your flag? If it's permitted, do we have to issue a sign permit for a flag, or is there a way to exempt flags entirely? I'm not trying to.
I don't know.
I don't think we ever addressed flags in the old sign.
I don't know that we did either, but
We didn't ever define them as a sign anyways. So, and I'm sure there's probably a legal precedent for addressing flags under a signage section.
I'll just say, I think for most people in the town of Pitkin, they would think we're foolish if we say, well, you gotta get a permit to fly your American flag.
Yep.
Electronics. We run plywood, plastic, plastic, electronic.
So
Okay, if you wanna, strike banners and flags, I would not object to that. My opinion.
all right, Jerry, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Or are you okay?
Yep.
All right. Bill, if you'll mark that on yours, I've got it marked on mine too. If you'll mark it on yours. Mark that out. Electronic message signs. The issue I could see with electronic message signs, why you'd want them to be prohibited, is that often they flash.
Or they're changing their message or scrolling.
Or the change the message, or they're changing the color. And I think that goes back to the flashing, moving, and intermittently lighted signs. So I don't know. I don't know if we should take electronic message signs out or leave it as prohibited signs.
We do have thank you flashing electronic signs on our speed limit signs.
That's true.
That's only if you're speaking.
No, it says
Well-
thank you if you're not speeding.
But we've also in the past talked about stop signs. We have the red LEDs around them flash. And so do we prohibit ourselves from doing them? Or do traffic signals become under a different category, Hillary?
Typically, yeah. There's also the enforcement piece. So you could have a prohibition that's enforced by nobody.
Could we say electronic, under prohibited electronic message signs except for traffic signs?
You know, I think those fall in a different category. If they're traffic control devices, those are not subject to the sign code.
Okay.
So we're gonna leave electronic message signs. Anything else in that section are prohibited? Only once.
I'm good.
Twice. Okay, rolling down. Temporary signs. Think we hit it. I don't know if there's anything there.
Do you want to
change?
increase the height, the maximum number of feet above ground level? From 4 to 6 or something higher?
I personally wouldn't mind it being higher, but if you have say you have 15 square foot sign, if you have a 3x5 sign, that means it's 1 foot off the ground. I wouldn't hurt to have a little leeway there on the height.
So
6 or 6 or 8 or something like that. When we get there, I was gonna bring that up. 64 feet.
Yeah. Put some spacing in. I know when Hillary corrects me.
Yeah.
Right, well.
It's not playing very nice.
Okay. Well, we'll move that to 6 feet then. I don't see anything else in.
Do we have, I'm sorry, do we have a time requirement on a temporary sign? Other than event and real estate signs?
48 hours after the event advertised on the sign, that's if it had a date on it. Because I could build a case that a temporary sign is temporary just in the summer.
Which, to be fair, if you had a business that had a recurring event throughout the summer, say I have a Friday night event, you know, I wouldn't want to say, oh, you can only have it up one time and you have to take it down. I mean, I think that's a reasonable. It's a good point. Or essentially you have to take it down 48 hours later and then put it back up every time. So I'm okay with it. I think there's room for improvement, but I'm okay with it as is.
I'd rather not make it more complicated.
Yep.
All right, we'll leave it. Number of signs, C. No more than 2 signs of 100 square feet.
Yeah, I think we need to fix that.
You each shall be in business district.
No more than 2 signs shall be permitted in the business district. No more than 2 signs in residential.
Oh, I see where you're going. Not
Yeah,
just on
that's-
your property, but the whole business
Yeah, that doesn't.
district.
I think that needs some clarification because that's kind of the way I think Jesse was reading it. That I was reading it the same way. That says, well, no more than 2 signs in business district.
No, it's per property.
It off premises.
Well, I assume that's on
It's per
premises.
property. Yeah, it's per property.
Per property. Okay. Yeah, I think that could be a little more just clarification there because I know that's what's going to come up. I kind of laughed at that when we got to that point.
I wasn't following you there for a little bit, but now I see. Okay.
Oh, okay, hang on. Your per property. In the residential district would indicate that. That's not restrictive. That's every property in the street in the business.
In the business district. Or
I
residential?
see what he's saying.
I misspoke.
So
I'm talking about the, no more than 2 signs, 50 square feet each, shall be permitted in the residential district for property.
So it should be per property in the residential district, or are you saying either way, we could end up with 2 signs in every property
And
all
that's
the way
what
down
I'm
to.
saying. Yeah.
That's how
but
it's
if-
meant.
but-
That's the intent. Each property could have 2 signs in the residential district.
So each property owner could put up 2 signs.
Yeah, 2 signs per yard.
when pranksters come and hang on
Yeah.
upper deck.
But they have some temporary sign advertising.
This woman actually applied for it in spring.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that clarifies that. Yeah.
Permitted per property. Just, but. The only other way you could restrict it more is say just one sign is allowed. But you still could have, you can't prevent.
I know what you're saying.
I don't think you can prevent and say, well, in residential district, we're gonna allow 10 total signs. First come, first served. Yeah,
But to be fair, an address number is a sign. Correct?
that's true too.
Well, so far,
Which
addresses
is-
are supposed to be on the house.
Which it, well.
No,
no.
I don't think numbers on the house are assigned.
What's that?
I don't think numbers affixed to the house for identification purposes are assigned.
Okay. I was gonna say, that's kind of a leftover thought process from the old sign verbiage.
Although that's getting ready to change.
It is with the wildfire resilience
Yeah. That'll be up
by the drive.
off track. Okay,
Okay, so we're gonna leave it that way. For property, adding for property. Okay, non-conforming signs. I don't think that's anything different. Setbacks. I think that's different. Municipal signs. So that doesn't apply to any of our town of Pitkin or on down right away. Okay, there,
Yeah, that addresses our traffic control.
it does, but there's on that last sentence, Hillary. Purposes such.
Yeah,
I
there's a
guess
type,
could
there needs to
be,
be a space there.
Face that. Oh, it did work. Hey. Sometimes it does. Okay. Section 17 for demolition, I believe the zoning board did add that. Saying that the state of Colorado demolition permit must be obtained prior to beginning any demolition. In the past, I don't believe we have that in. That's a good idea from what we've seen in the past. Clarification on the struck permit of variance. So unless a variance has been issued by the zoning board. Some adjustments. Then. Section E. Whatever tests of water supply design have been approved by the town of Pitkin Board of Health. Or its designee. If it is the Board of Health that decides on the OWTS items. G. From compliance with applicable building codes. And we struck appendix A. Because we will have by ordinance the building code version adopt. And then H was recommended by the zoning board to go from a 2-year permit to a 3-year permit from the date of issuance and expires after 3 years. However, the property owner can seek with a renewal fee, an update or an addition, a
Extension?
extension, thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
So. Are we okay? Everybody's okay with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Scrolling fast enough because I'm not seeing any changes, but there we go.
20 days.
Variance goes with 20 calendar days receiving completed variance. Instead of 15. Then appeals. Zoning adjustment decision to appeal to Board of Trustees. Appeal of zoning board of adjustment decision must be made in writing and filed with the town clerk. Oh, adding. On that debate. And then under violations. Alleged zoning violations shall be brought to the attention of the Board of Zoning Adjustment on a form provided by the town. The allegation shall include the specific section of the zoning code that pertains to the violation. What has been struck is complaints may be submitted by any resident or property owner of the town of Pitkin. And we put on here to ask our town attorney once we had one, and Hillary gave her recommendation off to the right to that anytime, the way I read it, I guess, is that anytime there's a complaint that comes in, doesn't matter if it's a zoning code complaint or even a town complaint that comes to the mayor, the violation needs to be addressed or looked at or researched to see if it in fact is a violation. If it is, then it needs to be addressed. And at that point, it doesn't really matter if it's a property owner or resident that brings up the complaint. Anybody can bring up a complaint. If it's a violation, it's a violation. That's the way I read it and interpreted it. So we okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
So I had a question under penalties. Can we actually do $300 a day?
Where you at?
Right there, down a
Oh.
smidge.
It's 300 per pound.
Okay. Section 21. Yeah, I don't, can we do $300 for each offense, or is it similar to the statute for OWTS, 50
No,
hours a day?
there's no limit. The OWTS $50 limit comes from state statute. There's not a limit applicable here. And this is not a change. This is what exists now.
I was just curious.
So no further changes there? Violation and penalty? Okay, I'm scrolling.
Well, since it's worded as an offense, it would be reported, it would be checked out, it would either be deemed an offense or not. I would expect, this is just me, that there would be a period of time to rectify the situation, and then your question is valid. When does it start?
Trustees say there's a violation here, that vote tonight. Not clean it up. When it start?
Yeah, Hillary, is there a way to word that essentially that, it's like, I don't know, you probably can't hear what I understand when somebody files a complaint or something, you go, oh, yep, there is a zoning code violation, the board meets. What does that process look like so we can determine a start date? Because I would assume if there's a zoning code violation, we would want to give them time to rectify the situation before we say that it's a violation.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of guidance here, but in order for it to be enforceable, I would think, yes, there needs to be a minimum of due process, which would probably mean notice, opportunity to be heard. Because the goal would likely be compliance, there would be probably first an opportunity to comply, and then fines would be sort of a last resort. And the way you would collect those fines is a little unclear, but they could be imposed.
Is that not something that could be county collected like we were talking about with the OWTS fines?
Potentially, yeah. We would have to put in here that those penalties can be referred to the county for collection as taxes.
Have any advice on how to write it, but I think it needs to be addressed. So,
But I think a couple of things need to be addressed, like you said, need to be clarified. When does it start? Kind of what's the process look like that if someone does have an offense? Is it the zoning board or is it the board of trustees that makes the final determination of that offense? And then do we allow a certain amount of time for compliance and then the $300 offense or a penalty starts, and then how do we collect it?
is that something you can draft, Hillary?
Yes, definitely.
We have a good attorney, why don't we do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it does read not to exceed 300, so it could be less. Well. Okay, so Hillary, you'll work on that. Great. Then section 22. Don't think there were any changes in it. Added request for and B there for zoning changes, request for amendments. Yeah. If I don't remember what we actually changed on that back in January of 24 for the section 7. Remember for sure what it was.
It looks fine to me. I'm not sure what the change was there.
We struck 9 and 10. And the building of ordinance, once we adopt this, we have to rebuild the other one, 2022 one. And then section 24 on complaints. I know Hillary noted over there, how does that differ from section 20A? Just to refer 20A as violations. I think was pretty clear there, so
Yeah, I feel like 24 is just kind of duplicating what's already there.
it's kind of redundant.
It seems a bit redundant.
So can we just strike section 24?
Consider it gone.
I see it as addressed. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that 45 days doesn't show.
But I think that,
And that
frankly, I
seems a
think
bit
that
much
could
to
be,
me.
I guess that's putting a date on which the zoning board should investigate. So I think maybe copying some of that up to 28, a time frame that it should be done by doesn't hurt, but I think the rest of it is redundant.
Yep. So Hillary, you clear on that?
Yes, I'll combine them.
Yep. Okay, and 25 stays the same, 26. Struck, that will be struck, so we could add subdivision.
Well, effective date was struck because the effective date will be specified in the ordinance that adopts the code. So you don't need it here.
Okay. Section 27 subdivision was added. And I'm presuming that was added because of the plan development.
Correct, yeah. You can't have plan development regs without subdivision regs.
Okay. So this was the section that either you added, Hillary, or your
Yes,
team?
it's new from us, yes.
Okay. Does anybody see anything in it? I was just concerned.
B, to some extent, so I think it addresses what Tom was bringing up, that and I understand there's the flexibility the town could just, require as part of the, but his point being that, if there's a subdivision and there's properties A, B, and C, that property B doesn't do something that negatively impacts A and C. And so I don't know if you want to just say they're required by a licensed professional, period. Because it, states intended for except for subdivisions that are exclusively intended for development of single family dwellings. And I don't know if the town, I just speaking just spitballing, do we want to require it either way? Because I think at some point, if you're evaluating the subdivision, the town's going to want that information anyways.
I would think the town would want that information of the plat of where the lots are, even
Yeah.
spelled out where the septic is.
Proposed lots, setbacks, septic swells, all the key items. So I don't know why we would necessarily exempt it for single family dwellings when it's arguably more important for subdivision than
Correct.
single family dwellings, given our lot sizes and our setback issues.
Hillary, can you weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is to allow flexibility for, say, a large parcel that's being subdivided for use among family. So it's kind of an informal subdivision where you're going to have, the daughter's house next door. However, I don't think there's harm in requiring the surveyed plat, or the subdivision plat. And keep in mind that the subdivider has to own the property, so they would essentially be harming their own interests if they're creating subdivided lots that are hard to sell or defective. So there's that interest too, that the subdivider will be limited by the fact that they're the owner.
Just in here in town, it'd be awfully hard to approve a subdivision without that information. From the town perspective.
Given the close proximity and the 9,000 square feet, you could very easily have one property
Yep. Ruin it for 2 or 3 other ones.
really hose 1 or 2 other properties. Kind of goes back to what Tom said before. 9,000 square feet, barely enough there. And if we don't, if we allow subdivision, we don't have that plat. That happened in town here.
Yeah. I think I would, I'm kind of in favor of not exempting single family dwelling subdivisions from that requirement. I just think even if you exempt them, at some point, the town's gonna have to look at that on single family dwelling subdivisions. And so why not just ask for it? It's just upfront. It's all upfront, and somebody that's doing a subdivision knows the requirements, just basic requirements.
So, but you say strike that, everything I had read.
I think so.
I do too. I don't,
Yeah, that was my suggestion.
I don't like the idea of excluding single family dwelling.
Yeah, I just can't imagine a scenario where the town goes, no, you don't need to see a plat of how it's gonna be divided.
Okay. Anything else, C and D? Okay, move down to section 27. General criteria. Don't see anything in it that I'd be opposed to. Anybody else?
So the board of trustees will have to review all applications, zoning board app or zoning. Am I misreading that? So I apply for a fence, it has to go to the town board. In addition to the zoning code or zoning board.
Yeah, that's not how it's meant to be. I think maybe a change there. I don't think it needs to be the Board of Trustees. If it's set forth otherwise as a different body's thing to review, this is not meant to add another layer of review. So let me work on that language. And maybe it's just a general, the town.
My assumption is that the zoning board would continue to review these. And I know trying to think of the example, but if the board of trustees reviews it and then they go, no, we deny it, then it comes back to the board of trustees for review if they appeal it, right?
Right.
So I think somewhat separating those responsibilities to the zoning board and having an appeal board be the town board makes more sense.
It does.
Plus, I know the current process seems much easier versus having to potentially involve the zoning board and the town board just to get an application for a fence or for a sign or for whatever. So.
Yeah, I don't think this was meant to change that, the way, the allocation of duties. So I will check that.
Okay.
Section 26 is. And then appendix A. Appendix A goes away because we'll adopt by ordinance the building code, the energy code, the wildfire resiliency code, every other code you can think of. And inspections fall in under the building code, so we should be good there. And then appendix A becomes the zoning district map. Okay. So a few modifications, if Hillary, if you'll do those and send them back out to me,
Will do.
pass them on to the board of trustees, to the zoning board too. And we can move forward with having a public hearing on the zoning code. All right, questions? Any other questions, thoughts?
Yeah, this is me. Back to the subdivision thing. I'm trying to imagine. Places that this might apply. with our 3 lots or 9,000 square feet requirement, which is not necessarily enough, but I mean, town's pretty packed. I don't know where.
I mean, I know a lot of it stemmed from Jake's request. If it's, his acreage up there. And I know a lot of it stemmed from that specific request, that we didn't really have
Well,
any
okay.
provision in the zoning code to.
I did not read that into this particularly. Back up the road, right off the bat there. Land development, that's where I read that in. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, let's, I think we're set on this. So once we have the updates from Hillary, at that point, can we, where do we go forward with this after we have the updates from you? Do we need to, I guess, as a board, review them again?
That's
And
up to
then
you. I mean, so this will go to planning and zoning and then board of trustees, and both should have public hearings. So there'll be plenty of time to review it. If you're comfortable just sending it off after these changes without seeing it again, but it's up to you.
You get a bundle out, and let us look at it, and we'll go straight to public hearing if we all feel okay.
Okay, I think we can meet. I'm good with that. I don't want to hold a meeting just to hold a meeting. Yeah, let's do it. All right. Anything else on budget or zoning code update? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
This is Gerald, I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Hillary.
You betcha. See you guys later. Bye.
You're valuable to us.
Oh.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
Did she drop off, or did we actually?
I don't know what I wasn't looking.
Hopefully drunk.
Hopefully she just accidentally clicked it. Maybe she was hovering over the stop or something.